All right. Hi, everyone. Welcome to our live on ServiceNow webinar for what, why, and how of Agent Workspace for HR case management. I'm Amrita Naik. I'm an outbound product manager in the Employee Workflows Business Unit. I'll be leading the webinar today. Joining me are co-presenters Abhinav Kumar and Michael Sheridan. Abhinav and Mike, do you want to say a quick hi to the group so they know who our panelists are?
Sure. So, hello, everyone. I'm Mike Sheridan from the product success team here at ServiceNow. And I'll pass it out to Abhinav.
Hey, hi, everyone. I'm Abhinav. I'm the Senior Inbound PM for the HRSD Agent Workspace.
Thank you both. We may see Gokan from our development team join as well. So if you do see answers coming from him in the Q&A, know that he's from our development team. Today, we will be covering content in the same order of the what, why, and the how of Agent Workspace. Before we get started on that, there are a few starter slides that we will cover. So the first one is our safe harbor slide. During the webinar, we may make some forward-looking statements that are subject to change. So please do not make any buying decisions based off of the forward-looking statements we make. Today's webinar is part of our Live on ServiceNow events, which is a curated event series to connect you with ServiceNow experts. So your deployment journey is faster and you end up achieving value faster. The QR code on the screen will give you the various webinar and 360 exchanges that we have planned. I'm also going to paste in chat Live on ServiceNow employee experience events. So if you go to the link that's pasted in chat, you'll be able to see what are the other employee experience events that's planned, and you can register for them. A few housekeeping rules. Today, we'll be taking Q&A in the form of the Q&A panel at the bottom of your screen. We will not be monitoring chat. And based on what content we have planned today, we may not have time to answer Q&A live, but we will be answering them in the panel. So please ask your questions in there through the webinar. And after the event, I plan to capture the Q&A into a PDF and attach it to the event page itself. So let me share the event page link as well. If you can subscribe to this event page, whenever there's an update made to the event page, you'll get a notification. So we'll put in the Q&A as a PDF, and that will also capture any unanswered questions if we have for today in that for your reference. Today's webinar will be recorded, and the recording as well as the slides will be updated on the same event page. After the event, you will be prompted with a short survey. We will all appreciate your time that you take to fill out the survey and let us know what you thought about our session today. Now, with the initial set complete, let's get started. So our first start will be of a poll. So I just launched the poll. We would really like to understand where you're all at with your journey with Agent Workspace. Are you using classic Agent Workspace today or configurable? Are you using configurable Agent Workspace specifically? Are you aware of what are the advantages of configurable Agent Workspace over what Code UI provides as well as what classic or legacy provides? And the other part, the last question here is, if you have already implemented configurable Agent Workspace, Abhinav and I would like to connect with you to understand your implementation journey more and understand your experience, the good, the bad, the challenges, all of it. So if you're open to having that conversations, please let us know through the last question, and I will set up a sync with you further to have that one-on-one conversation. So I see responses coming in. I will leave that poll on, so you can feel free to keep responding to it. In the interest of time, I'll go ahead and proceed us along. Once I see responses slow down, I'll end the poll between the webinar. All right. So Agent Workspace for HR case management. Before we get into what exactly that means, let's first understand what is Agent Workspace. So Agent Workspace is a product feature that enables an HR professional to better service a given request. And how it does that is it provides a unified workspace, bringing in various components or pieces that an agent requires to solve the case. It could be bringing in employee information. It could be bringing in the various aspects of case management or collaboration tools that are required, and all of this in one place. So today, if you look at agents day to day, if you look at this picture on the slide, agent in the center with all the multiple things that they're doing, multitasking on understanding where's the request coming from? Is it a chat or is it a call queue? Working on their existing workload, working on understanding what are the long-running cases and if they are breaching SLA. In the flow of their work, identifying what the employees, what their previous cases have been, or even understanding their location. All of these are things that are in siloed modules that the agent looks for. And our agent workspace aims to bring all of this together in one place so that it in turn impacts agents' productivity and efficiency. Along with this, it also brings a very modern user interface with a multi-tab and a multi-paned experience. You'll see that as part of the demo to what I'm referring to as multi-tab and multi-pane. Now, coming to Agent Workspace for HR case management, this is also called as a Configurable Agent Workspace. This is the latest version of Agent Workspace available. And this was released in March 2022 around San Diego. As per licensing, this is available with HR Standard, Professional, and Enterprise. This particular version of Agent Workspace is built on UI Builder, which is our web user interface for our JavaScript-based framework called as Next Experience. And this Agent Workspace provides a lot of flexibility to an admin to configure their pages or components of Agent Workspace per the requirement in their organization. So you'll kind of see in the later half of the webinar of what UI Builder is and how can one configure things in UI Builder. Mike will actually walk us through that demo. Now to understand why Agent Workspace, right? It does bring in all these multiple components together for an agent to view in one single pane. So anytime an agent is working on a case, almost always you'll see them multitasking into another case, either via a call or somebody saying, my case is urgent or it's escalated. So the context of where the agent left that case, either in a sub-tab, is retained versus them overlapping the next case that they are working on. So it provides a great single pane view for agents on what they're working on. It provides integration to communication channels. There are features like agent chat and advanced work assignment, wherein we won't be talking about it much in detail, but just to give you an understanding, that is an integration with communication channels wherein work items come in and automatically route to agents who have the capability, the skill, as well as availability to service that particular case. Along with this, Agent Workspace also brings in Agent Assist, which is recommendations to the agent on what can be used to solve the case faster, as well as a lot of other resources that the agent will find useful while servicing a case. Now, apart from this, the next slide will show us the core use cases. So when you think of HR case management, here are some of the core cases, the core tasks that an agent performs, be it going to a case from a landing page or a dashboard, or making sure that whatever information is provided while creating the case is well received and well captured in the case, communicating to the person who's created the case about the ongoings of the case, or finding out knowledge articles, attaching it to the case. All of these are also part of Agent Workspace. So it does take care of the core case management aspect as well for the agent. When we do talk about the core case management features, you will observe that as part of the webinar, as well as on community, you see these terms quite often being used. So I wanted to use this slide to set that context of what do we mean when we say core UI? What do we mean when we say classic or legacy agent workspace or configurable agent workspace? So the first screenshot on the left top is core UI. So what that means is the HR case that is opened in the form view or the list view outside Agent Workspace. So it's just the platform view of a case. Now, when you talk about Agent Workspace, one could be referring to the Legacy Agent Workspace or Configurable Agent Workspace. Legacy Agent Workspace was released as part of the family plugin several releases back, and the name of the plugin is HR Service Delivery Agent Workspace. The Configurable Agent Workspace is the latest and the greatest version of Agent Workspace, and it's a store application. So understand that Configurable Agent Workspace is not just an upgraded version of Legacy Agent Workspace. With that, I mean that you cannot do a one-click upgrade and move into Configurable. It is a migration if you are moving from legacy agent workspace into configurable agent workspace. From the screenshot, you may feel that the record page looks very similar, but please note that the underlying stack is very different. So there is more configurability and more flexibility that comes with configurable agent workspace. Let's take a look at the difference between configurable agent workspace and legacy agent workspace. So configurable agent workspace is built on UI Builder. What this brings is each page is built with components that are editable by the admin. So this gives a lot of power to the admin to configure pages however they wish based on the organization's need. It also allows admins to create variants to pages so they can cater specific pages to specific audience and not have one strict page. It also brings in flexibility with branding and styling, whereas legacy agent workspace is quite restrictive in these aspects. The other call out here is every new innovation that we're making will be on configurable agent workspace. For example, our Now Assist features are all going to be on configurable agent workspace. Any new feature or fixes are now coming on configurable agent workspace. For example, our bulk case creation feature, safe harbor call out here. This is a feature that we are releasing in our May 2024 release, which is upcoming in a month. But this is a feature that was supported in Core UI, which did not exist in the legacy agent workspace, but we are releasing support for this feature in configurable agent workspace. So as of Vancouver release, legacy agent workspace is in a deprecation phase. So we don't allow installing or activating that plugin on any new customer instance. And come Xanadu release, we will be end of support for legacy agent workspace. So if you are on legacy agent workspace and are looking to move to configurable agent workspace, we do have migration guidelines available for your consideration. So please make sure you go through these guidelines and then plan your migration accordingly. The effort to migrate will completely depend on how customized is your legacy agent workspace. So from here on, everything we talk about in this webinar will be strict to configurable agent workspace. So whenever an agent is using our configurable agent workspace, pretty much they are using one of these pages. So the landing page is the first page where an agent lands when they're using the workspace. Our aim with this page is to provide agent one place to see how their day looks like today. So it's going to be very curtailed to their caseload. So it'll show them what is the cases assigned to them that are SLA at risk, what are the higher priority cases assigned to them. And it also gives them some information about how their team's workload is looking like. The record page, which is the one on the right, this is where an agent will spend time when they're working on a specific case, where they'll get support in terms of recommendation and resources. The third page is the list page. This is where an agent can access the lists that are configured by the admin as well as lists that they have created. Some agents really prefer working through lists rather than a landing page. So this is where they can create whatever list they want and then work from that. The fourth one is the case creation page. This page in particular, in the flow of work, an agent almost always ends up creating a new case. And this particular case creation page comes into picture when an agent is creating a new case. So we will go through this in the demo, so you'll be able to see it further. Before we get into the demo, I want to highlight some terms in terms of what the record page brings. So the first one is tabs. So if you see the highlighted section in red, you'll see that every case that the agent opens in a separate tab. And this tab is not on the browser. This is something that's opening in agent workspace. So if I'm working on a given case, any sub tab I open will not be on the parent tab level, but will be a sub tab under the parent case. So at a given point in time, you can always know what you did in that case last. The next one is the related items menu bar. So all the related records, as you remember in Core UI, are all the way at the bottom. This has been raised to the top. So an agent doesn't have to scroll through all the way to the bottom to access any of the related records. Next one is the form header. This kind of gives you a view of what is the service, who is the subject person. And this is definitely configurable by the admin to say a quick view of what the case is about. Contextual sidebar, we'll go through each of these icons in detail, but this is primarily the place where the recommendations and resources are made available to an agent in their flow of work. As part of the record page is also the form section. This is where you will get details of the case, what is the status of the case, priority, who's it created for, who's it assigned to. The second pane is the activity stream. So you can actually see what are the changes that's happening on the case. And the last one here is the pane toggle, which gives an agent a preference of how they would like to see this particular case form. So they can collapse and expand the activity stream or the details tab. Now we'll go into a quick walkthrough or a demo. As part of my demo, we'll go over the 4 pages that we've discussed. We'll take a look at what are some of the common configurations in terms of the list as well as the case cards. I'll quickly show you what we have in terms of admin configurations as guided setup and an out-of-box dashboard. So let me quickly switch my screen into an instance. Abhinav, Mike, can one of you confirm you're able to see the instance?
Yes,
I can
Amrita.
see it.
Perfect, thank you. So on this instance, I'm impersonating an HR agent called Roger Seed. Once Roger Seed is on an instance and they go to Workspace, here is where they select HR Agent Workspace, and that brings them to this landing page. So as they land on this landing page, you can see that these first 3 sections are what is provided out of box is specific to that agent. So these are single scorecards which tell the agent that there are 40 cases assigned to them which are SLA at risk. Same goes for this. So these 3 case cards are specific to the agent. And this is a carousel component that sits with a list of all the cases that hit a criteria. Again, all of these are things that the admin can configure. Next, you will see that there are cards which represent their teams and agents' teams work. So Roger's team has 578 cases which are SLA breached, and you get more information of how the team is performing. And the last 3 widgets here on the landing page, which is the announcement, the quick link, and my frequently used apps, these are widgets that come with content delivery plugin. So the aim here is that if there are any scheduled contents that is for Roger Seed, that is specifically visible to Roger Seed, an admin can make those available in the landing page itself. Because day in, day out, an agent is on this page and doesn't have the bandwidth to go into an employee portal to see what the announcements are, we make it readily available here so that they are aware of what's happening in the organization and have access to some of the quick links and apps that they frequently use. The second icon on the left is the list icon. So this is pretty much where an agent can access the lists that an admin has created for them. So when you don't expand them, these are all called as the list categories. And when you expand them, these are lists under this particular list category. So the first tab, lists, is everything that the admin has configured, and an agent can access this based on what is available and accessible to them. My list is where an agent can create their own list. So if an agent goes ahead and adds new list, they get 2 options to create a list. They can either create it from an existing list. So I can just pull up whatever an admin has created and then add in new filters over here to make it just customizable to me. Or I can create my own from scratch, wherein I can select a source, which is pretty much a table, and then create a new list. But whatever list I create will sit under my list. The third icon here is the inbox. This is primarily for agent chat and advanced work assignment. So we will not be going through this in detail, but I'll give you a quick idea of what it is. So here an agent can actually select the status of being available to accept a work item or away, basically their status. And then based on that, whatever work item or request comes in, an agent will be provided with a card here where they can accept the work item and start working on the case or reject it based on their availability. The last icon here is the Analytics Center. The Analytics Center provides an agent with dashboards, data visualization, and KPIs. So dashboards, out of box, we have several dashboards available, but based on the agent's access for Roger Seed, there are these 3 dashboards available. So if I click into one of these dashboards, which is HR Agent, you will see that for Roger Seed, it's showing his open backlog, what are his breached cases, unassigned cases, as well as more information around their state of the cases, which is in their backlog, as well as unassigned case distribution. So each of these are not interactive, but they're definitely drillable. So if you click on this, it will take you to the list view to see what are the cases that form that data. Now let's go on to a record page and see what is available. So this is one of the cases that Roger is working on. I'll also open, simultaneously, I'll open few other cases. So I'll show you the multi-tab view. So now Roger's seed is working on 3 of these cases. So you can see each of them is a tab that's opened in Agent Workspace and not the browser. Now, in this case, say I am looking at task SLA and I open this particular record, you can observe that that particular record opens as a sub tab under this case rather than a parent tab. So if I ever have to switch into another case, I finish this case and I come back to this, I know where I was working on this case last. So this is really helpful for a lot of our agents when they are multitasking on cases. Now, from the slide deck, you all probably remember the various terms used here. Some of them that I want to highlight will be the multi-tab view, as well as, let me expand this a little bit so you can see the contextual panel here. Let's go through the contextual panel. So the first icon is at a glance. So whenever an agent works on a case, some of the common things that they do are to understand, where is this employee based out? So a location is something that they commonly try to understand. So providing employee information, providing which department that the employee is in, as well as what are some of the recent cases that was created for this employee, gives an agent an overview of what the employee might need and serve them better. So our at a glance panel helps provide that overview or that big picture to the agent. Second one is Agent Assist. This is where knowledge articles that are applicable to this case reflect. So an agent can always access these articles and use them while servicing the customer. It could be internal knowledge base articles for the agent to understand how to solve a particular case, or it could be external knowledge base articles, which is readable for the customer. So we've provided an open for toggle here. So when the agent clicks on this or toggles this to search as open for, the articles that are provided here are the articles that are readable by Adela. So the agent can know that if they do attach this particular article to the case, the employee has readable access to it. Next one is employee documents. So this icon becomes available only when employee document management plugin is activated, and any employee document that's available for this employee will reflect in this icon. The next one is attachments. So any attachments that are made part of the case will be available here. Response template. So these are templates, reusable templates that are built for the agent on the table by the admin. So it could be as simple as acknowledging the case. So if you look at this template, it just provides the agent an easy template of saying that we've received the case, we are working on it, and this is the channel in which we will communicate with you. So you can just copy this template, add it to the comments, and send it to the employee. Fulfillment instructions. These are targeted instructions for an employee to service this request. And these can be built on the service. These can be catered to a particular group. They can be catered to further additional conditions and so on. Checklists. These are checklist of items that are required to be completed by the agent to service the the employee successfully. And these are primarily created on an HR service level. Email template. If there are any templates that have been created on the table for emails, basically with the subject line and a body, that template will show up in the email template section. The last one we have is personal notes. I will not go in detail over here because Abhinav will be covering this in our February release highlights. This is a new feature that we've released as of February store. So he'll walk you through this. Now, in terms of things that the agent can configure, or their preferences. So if Roger Seed goes to his preferences for workspace, they have these 2 options, which is show the sidebar. So if I just disable this, all it does, it takes the sidebar away by default. But if the agent clicks on these, it definitely comes back. So it's just an option for them to select their preference of what happens by default. Same goes with show the ribbon. A ribbon component is a component that sits above the related records. and it is something that is configurable by the admin. An agent by this preference just chooses to say whether they want to see that ribbon component by default or not. Now, in terms of configurations that are available to the admin, definitely because it is built on UI Builder, it's very detailed in what can be configured by the admin through UI Builder. But there are some of the common configurations that an admin performs, specifically in terms of the landing page. That is these three cards, case cards, as well as if you see these highlighted in blue and green, these are called as tags. So an admin has placed a tag here for the agent to know, even in the high priority cases that they have, there is one case that is for a VIP. So the agent can choose to work on this case with highest priority compared to the other based on these tags. So you can make use of any tagging system that you have in your organization here. So I'll show you where an admin can make case card configurations as well as the tagging configurations. Along with that, I'll also show you where an admin can modify these lists. So let me end impersonation and go back to the admin. And here for the case card, it's going to be UIB HR case card configuration, as well as I'll open the tag configuration as well in another tab. So this is where an admin can create the case card configuration. So here the admin specifies the details of what is the case card and what type of cases will match this filter. So you'll see that for a high priority case, it has to be priority critical and high, assigned to me and true. You can also add secondary sorts here by using the add sort button here. In terms of tag configurations, if you remember the VIP tag, the tag configuration section is where the admin will create these tags. So they can add in a condition of what needs to be tagged and what is the tag text that is available. In terms of the list categories and what I can show you in the interest of time is our guided setup. So if you type in Agent Workspace for HR case management, the very first submodule you get is our guided setup. So this is very detailed in terms of what all is configurable by the admin and where they can go to configure it. So once this load, you will be able to see that from theming to branding to all the way to fulfillment instructions and more, you will get details of what all can an admin configure. So this is pretty much what I had for my demo. And after this, I know since UIB is our foundation, or there is a lot that one can do with the UIB, Mike will kind of walk us through the UIB structure and also some of the leading practices and common configurations that one makes. So Mike, whenever you're ready, you can take over the screen.
Awesome. Are we going to leave the poll up just so I know to minimize it, or?
I'll end the poll. I saw that it's stopped, so I'll go ahead and end the poll.
All right, I'll go ahead and share in the meantime.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so what we're going to talk about today is I'm going to get into some of the specifics on HR Agent Workspace in terms of UI Builder and some of the more advanced configurations that we do in UI Builder, as well as kind of highlight some of the different components, objects that we have within UI Builder, because I'm seeing a lot of questions in the community about how do I do X or how do I do Y? And a lot of those components are by way of the UI Builder. So I'm going to talk about the UIB structure. What are some of those components and what do they do? I'll talk about some of the workspace pages and variants. So, what is the record page? What is the landing page? I'll then go into leading practices. If I'm going to do some configurations, what are the steps that I take? I mean, at a high level. And I'll walk through some of those common configurations, and then I'll talk about the case creation. There's some ambiguity around the case creation, and I'll just hope to clear some of that up for you. So where I'm going to start is the configurations for UI Builder. So in UI Builder, every component that is available within inside UI Builder has a configuration property, and this is really what tells it how to function. Of those configuration properties, we have things like data resources, macroponents, UX client scripts, event handlers, which may sound like some new concepts for many of you, but are simple concepts in terms of the UI builder. I'll talk about a little bit about those components before I show you what they look like, because as part of my walkthrough, I'll highlight each of these components and how they're working, for the use case that I'm talking about. So data resources is a component, is an object that mediates between a component and the data server. So really what connects the client to the server, if you will, if we're doing things like getting data. The data resource brings data from the server to the component. And then it brings updated data back to the server based on interactions with the component. The component could be a modal, the component could be a page, but that's what really acts as the communicator, if you will. The next item we have are macroponents. And macroponents, just think of them as metadata. They define the seismic component, seismic being the framework, and these exist in a table. It's sys_ux_macroponent. For those that aren't familiar, you could pull that up on your instance just to see what you have available. And what we do from a development perspective, instead of writing a seismic component in JavaScript, if you declaratively define your component's composition, data in the business logic and the system generates the seismic component you want at runtime. So translated, that just does a lot of the back-end work for you, just through more like a GUI interface. So that's where macroponents can be helpful. And macroponents, just like any other seismic component, can be very granular, like buttons. They can be encompassing like pages and app shells, and then anything in between, like tabs. Because they are metadata driven, we can easily combine them or override them, compose them together. So a lot of flexibility. The next component I think is important are UX client scripts. And these are different from what we're used to as client scripts on the UI 16. They're more for the UX. And these client scripts, we also call them page scripts, as a UXF artifact, which contains the JavaScript to add functionality or behavior to your page or your components. In response to the page, and let's say page ready event, or in response to events that say something like a button click, are triggered from the component upon user interaction. So a typical use case for client scripts. Client scripts are bound to the page macroponent and typically contains what we call events in order to handle the code. Last thing I'll talk about, and one of the main items within UI Builder, are event handlers. And this is how we tell the client script where to interact with the component. So we have event handlers when I click on a report and I want to drill down into or have it query the task table. Those are done by event handlers, and I'll show a few of those in the application. And just simply, an event handler is an automated system response between the user action or the system occurrence. And we call them an event, which house an event mapping. So in lieu of any more descriptions of what those components are that we work with, I'm going to show you how these look in UI Builder and then talk a little bit about leading practices. So where I'm going to start is the pages or variants. So first thing I'm going to do is make sure that my scope is Agent Workspace for HR case management. And what I'm going to do now is open UI Builder for Agent Workspace for HR case management. And you'll see we just get a big listing of different pages, or what we call variants. Some of the more common pages or variants are things like the record page. So when I look at the UI or the HR Agent Workspace record, I'm seeing a case SRP. In this case, you see I've made a copy, which is of leading practices. Case SRP, I think, one of the most familiar components of HR Agent Workspace. Well, we have other things as well that we're using, like the inbox. We have things like the landing page. Other things that we use within the HR Agent Workspace is the case creation page. So we have a case creation default that is separate from the case creation as you've known it, prior to HR Agent Workspace. The UI 16, when you go to create a case, it's going to look pretty much exactly like you're going to pull it up in the UI builder in HR Agent Workspace, but they function independently. So if I have fields, things that I'm showing on case create, HR service case creation, where I'm pulling in additional fields, those are still going to function the same on the HR Agent Workspace. But if I'm trying to customize where I'm changing queries and things of that nature, I have to do it in two different places. So I think that's another unknown out there in the community, that the case creation depends on where you're accessing it from. If I'm accessing it from the UI 16, if I just type in create new case in the application navigator, it's going to open the UI 16 representation. If I'm in HR Agent Workspace and I open the case create, it's going to open the case creation variant of which we're looking at here. I'll go into, at the end of my demonstration, I go more into the case creation variant, and we'll look at some of those objects. So, happy to address any questions as we're moving along on that path. Okay, so I want to talk now about leading practices, and something we've done as of recent is we lock down, we make the original default page read-only. So a good example would be, out of box, we provide the case SRP variant or page for the HR Agent Workspace. And what this is the representation of the case record when we open it. We'll wait for UI Builder to load it here. And then what we see is some modals that are configured or are included with the case, or with the case SRP. So we have the transfer case modal. We're transferring a case. We have some functionality around that. Sending emails, close interaction. So we have a lot of items that we're working with. If you notice at the top, I have a read-only message, because we're trying to keep, as leading practices, we're trying to keep the out-of-box pristine. So what we typically do is, if we have a use case to where we have to maybe make some modifications, we want to add some data fields to the at-a-glance, we want to change some things within UI Builder, what we typically do is we come to settings and we duplicate the page variant as the leading practice. And now, for those customers that are on Configurable Workspace prior to when we locked it down, you're maybe not at the latest and greatest of HR Agent Workspace or the Configurable Workspace. You may not see that read-only message. Be that as it may, we still recommend that you duplicate the variants in order to make them your own. Very simple process. I just click duplicate, and I can go on to work on my copy of that variant. One thing to remember, and I think is an important item of our leading practices, we have an order of all of our variants. You see that my copy is 50. The out-of-box may be 50 as well. So the lower the order, the higher the priority of that variant being presented. So my example would be, if I move this order to 0, it's going to be the case SRP page that gets served up for our users. If I made this a higher value than the out-of-box, and maybe I made it 100, it's not going to be used if it meets the conditions of the out-of-box. We have some conditions that we could put on variants, not typical, but again, we could have conditions on variants as well. Thing to remember here, best practices: 1, we copy the out-of-box variant to make it our own. 2, we make sure that it has a lower order than the out-of-the-box, so it's the variant that's going to be used. So moving on, I want to talk about some of the common configurations. So I'll go into my I'll go into my copy of the variant, and I'm going to open it in editor mode. I'm just going to walk through it to duplicate here so we could see what that looks like. And what I'll do is I'll then walk through. I'm going to make this order of 0. We could also make this a negative number. So if the out-of-box variant is already at 0 and we're unable to modify it, you can make that a negative number. And I'll make that -10. And I'll go ahead and save this new variant. And this is the one we'll work through. As you can see, simple step to take and the recommended approach. So what I'm going to do now is go to the editor, and some of the comments configurations, and I think it came up in one of the questions today, is I want to hide a component. We don't have a need for maybe response templates. We're not using it. It's confusing our agents, even though it's a recommended feature that we hope that you would use. But it may be a case to where, well, we're not really using the response templates, so we want to hide that from the page whenever we open it, or we may want to hide it for a certain table. So a good example is I could go to my tab sidebar where that side panel item exists. And if I go to my configuration, you'll see that I have my tabs listed. Oh, sorry, got to click on the right one. And I have all my tabs listed. So let's just say that the response templates was a sidebar item that I want to hide. I could click on the configuration or the settings, and then you see I have a hide tab field here where I could hide it based on some conditions. One of the common ones, and one of the use cases I work with another customer, is they wanted to hide the response template for a certain form. So what I could do is I could dot walk into the details of that condition. So I'm going to use my data component, and this is leveraging that data resource that I talked about earlier, where it's the method of communication between the component, i.e. the page, and the server. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to say data record, and I'm going to say table. And this is just an example where I may want to hide this response templates whenever somebody's pulling up a record that's an ER case. And if I save this, refresh my page here, go into HR Agent Workspace, do a refresh if I was already in HR Agent Workspace, I'm not going to see the response templates side panel item when it's an ER case. So you could modify this to your use case. Just a simple example on how you could have one of the tabs hidden when you don't want it to show. It may be that you don't want it to show at all based on any table, and you could use a condition simply that would hide it under all conditions, rather than trying to delete an object, move it off the page. That would be the recommended approach. We could do the same for any of the components. So it may be, Agent Assist is something that we would want to hide. So we also have the ability to hide components based on any conditions as well. So even though I showed it on a tab, each of these items, you see the manager container has a little line going through the eye. That's just showing me that I have a hide condition for that particular component. So what this is going to do is it's going to hide the component when it meets this condition. There's a tips and tricks that we have published on the community where we show how to hide a field within the at a glance when no data exists. So in my example, business entity, when the user has no value for business entity, we don't want to show the label on the card. And ultimately, we're just using this same feature in order to accommodate that. Okay, the last item of my demo that I'll go through is the case creation. And again, if I was going to make any modifications to the case creation, I would make a copy of that variant in order to make it my own. But some of the things I want to show are, well, how do I get to see what the client scripts are, what the mappings are, what the data resources are? So if you look here at the bottom left, you have the little kind of database icon. If I click on that, I could see the data resources that are available for this variant. If I click on it, I could get some more context as to what it's doing. It's looking at the COE selected, the HR service selected user display value. It's looking at what the HR service that's selected. I point this out because I hear a lot of use cases around customers that want to restrict HR services based on the agent's role or the agent's location. And that's not how it functions out of box. Out of box, we base the HR service on the subject person's availability to that HR service. As you all know, we could we could apply an audience or HR criteria to HR services so it's not available for certain individuals. Well, some customers have use cases where they want to do something custom and don't know where to start. And not that we're wanting you to customize, but if you have use cases to where you need to make modifications, remember that there's going to be two different areas. If you're using the HR Agent Workspace, the configurable workspace, you're going to have to make some modifications around your case creation data resource, your event mappings, as well as your UX client scripts, as well as what you're doing on the UX 16. So just to give you some insight of some of those components. So we'll close out the data resources, and then we'll go into some of the event mappings. So if you remember when I talked about the components in UI Builder, everything has a property. And that's where we go to configure those properties in the config tab. In the events tab is where we're invoking those UX client scripts. So here's a good example where we have, when the page is ready, we're executing a client script to update the tab title. And then we could, view some details of that client's or what that mapping is doing. But we have events and then we have event mappings. And this is how we invoke workflow. When the page is loaded, we want it to do this. When a button is clicked, we want it to do that. Those are all going to be seen as part of your events within that case creation. So the big takeaway here is that if you're wanting to modify case creation, you're going to have two places to do it. If you just want to look to see what case creation is all about, you're going to have to look in two places. Ultimately, we've done a lot that we've done as configuration, as Abhinav next will explain, in order to make this a little bit simpler. So seems like a very complex concept with UI Builder, but in my views, it makes it much easier and puts all these components at our hands that we can leverage just as we're, coding in Java and we're using methods, to trigger our code or to make our code work. So with that said, I think I'm right at time, but I'll pass it over to Abhinav for some insight on what we have in Configurable Workspace.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you, Mike. Abhinav, let me quickly share the slide deck again.
Yeah, we can see the deck.
Go ahead.
Okay, so as till now, you must have understood that the main persona is the HR agent, but we are also focusing on the HR admin as well as the HR manager. So today I'll be talking about what all we have done in the Feb store release, which is going to be compatible with Washington. Mostly I'll be talking about the major 3 to 4 features. In the first one, I saw a lot of questions in the Q&A as well on how can we actually set up our custom reports or our custom dashboards within the HR agent workspace. So what we have done in Washington is till now, all these dashboards were visible outside of the HR agent workspace, which is the platform analytics workspace. Our goal is to make sure that the HR agent, the HR manager, whatever they need should be visible within the HR agent workspace. So what we have done is we have actually got all the 12 out-of-the-box dashboards which were there in the platform analytics workspace within the HR agent workspace. So as you can see, there will be an option, a menu of analytics center, which we have just added in Vancouver, where there were like 3 dashboards, and then we enhanced with the other 9 in Washington. So all the 12 dashboards, which Amrita is just showing, like the HR case dashboards, all of them are now visible within the HR agent workspace. So these are the out-of-the-box dashboards. In case if you are facing any difficulties, you have to enable the dashboard visibility feature, which is highlighted in red over there. You have to add the tag of HR agent workspace, post which the dashboard will be visible over here. In case if you want to migrate, I've seen that question in community as well. In case you have a lot of custom dashboards, you have to migrate them from classic or platform, there is an option of a migration center where you can migrate all these reports and dashboards from the platform analytics workspace to within the HR agent workspace as well. So all of these options are visible just to make sure that the HR agent manager is the main person over here, gets to see all the related dashboards and metrics within the HR agent workspace. Yeah, Amrita, you can go to the next one. Here, the main persona is the HR admin, where you've seen till now, Amrita was demoing around a lot of configuration settings. Even Mike was also talking about different places to go, right? So what we have tried to do over here is to get all the different configurations which exist within the HR agent workspace. We've divided them into 4 parts. Either it is your case creation, or your main record page, or your list page, or your landing page, right? So all these different 4 sections, what all different settings you have within all of these pages are now clubbed into a single configuration settings page, which is right there on the left hand side. You will see a gear icon where all the different configurations, this is like just introduced in Washington. We have added around 20 to 25 different configurations, and our goal is to have everything housed into a single place, because I've seen a lot of HR admins, even like the HR agents, trying to figure out how do we change, like say, while we are creating a case, right? Say the employee details, right? What all fields are visible? I've seen so many different questions around it. People go to the community or our documentation. We are trying to make life very, very simple for the HR admin to get all the settings within the configuration settings page. And we have plans to enhance this further in Xanadu and Yokohama as well. The next one is, so what we're trying to do is, since a lot of customers are moving from either the platform view, the UI 16 view, or the classic workspace view, we're trying to make parity between what we have in UI 16 and what we offer in configurable workspace, right? So there are a couple of things over here. The first one is on the checklist. So till now, the checklist options were only viewable, only read-only in the configurable workspace, though in UI 16, all of them were editable, or you can like remove and play around, like reorder these checklist options as well. That wasn't there in HR agent workspace. We have like shortened that parity issue. From the Washington release, HR agents can reorder, change the checklist options, edit them, all of those use cases are easily possible within the configurable agent workspace. The second one is around employee relations cases. Till now, I mean, ER agents are little different from HRs, and they want to see only their cases in a different manner. Till now, that segregation was not there within the HR agent workspace, but from the Washington release, we have added ER cases as a separate section within the list view. You can see the screenshot. All ER cases are separated from the HR cases over there. And then the last is on personal notes, where Amrita was talking about. We've added an option to then agent can just, in case if they are working on a specific case, they haven't really made sure that everything is finalized for that specific HR case. Today we have an option of work notes, but that is visible to all the HR agents who are accessing that case. Now this is a little more private or privy, where the HR agent only wants himself or herself to be visible. Those all the nodes, they are basically on a draft mode. They haven't really figured out the finalization of these nodes. So that is why we have added another feature, which is the personal nodes. These can only be accessed by the agent who is working on. That means the assigned to of that specific case, and these will get deleted once the case is closed. Once the case has been transferred, the first person can actually see a read-only version, but the other one can actually, the current HR agent can edit them as well. So that's more adding of a personal flavor into these HR cases as well. With that, I think it marks the end of all the features which have been shipped in the Washington release. I'll pass it on back to Amrita.
Thanks, Abhinav. So our next slide is the resources slide. So the first link is basically a post on community. We like to call this as a library of articles where we filled all the articles that we think will really benefit someone who's trying to explore Configurable Agent Workspace. It'll have resources in terms of understanding what these terminologies means, like UI Builder, Next Experience, what is the technology stack. Also, the tips and tricks articles that Mike was referring to during his walkthrough, all of these articles will be in this library of articles for your reference. So I'll quickly paste in the chat all of these resource links. The PDF version of the slide will be available on the events page, but just in case you want to grab it from the chat, I'll paste this as well. The second one is a UI Builder fundamentals course that we have on Now Learning. This is an excellent course, pretty much a starter for me also to understand Configurable Agent Workspace really well. It sets great foundation. So if you are looking to understand UI Builder more, definitely make use of this course. Next Experience Developer Tools. This is a Chrome extension that was built by a platform team. So in case you're making a lot of customization or building your own things with Next Experience, this is a great tool it adds on to your developer tools on your Chrome, and you can inspect elements, see what type of values are coming in with your calls, and it's a great tool to debug and troubleshoot. We have a release blog, specifically a deep dive article that's published on community, which talks about the features, not just tied to Agent Workspace, but all the other features that's coming in HRSD as well as part of February 2024 store release and Washington release. So feel free to go through these in detail to see what are the other enhancements that's coming in the CKM space as well, which are things that you can use in Agent Workspace as well. And the last one is the migration guidelines that we had talked about earlier. So I did see someone ask in the chat for the link, so I have provided that in the chat for your reference. Now, in the interest of time, I will skip the question and answer piece because we will pick up any question that's unanswered as part of the PDF that I will upload to the event page. But I want to quickly shed some light on this particular page. This is pretty much covering some of the frequently asked questions we see on community as well as what we've heard with customers. So the three widgets at the bottom of the landing page were the ones coming from content delivery widgets. And a common question I see is how do we configure them? So I definitely want to call out that there is a post on community which goes in detail of how to configure them. So I've linked it here for your reference. The second one is, if I have favorites, if I'm moving from classic to configurable, and if I have some favorite lists or my list created, do they automatically migrate into configurable? This doesn't happen. This is something that you have to recreate in configurable. And the third common question is, if there is a field in the form, does that directly sync into the record page on Configurable Agent Workspace? It does not directly sync. It's not a bidirectional sync. You have to add it in that workspace view for it to reflect in Configurable Agent Workspace. And these are the three columns that I wanted to shed in this slide, which I think will be very useful for you to understand what are the configurations that needs to be migrated when you're moving from classic to Configurable Agent Workspace, and what automatically moves as part of your global configuration. So I know we're at time, so hopefully these details and this webinar has been helpful. We want to thank each one of you for attending today. And if you have any questions after this webinar, please reach out to me and I'll be able to set up some time to connect further. Thank you, everyone. You have a great rest of your day.